coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. First, the local headlines.
A group of business leaders in Arizona have filed a lawsuit over Proposition 206. The proposition would raise the minimum wage to $12 in the state and provide paid leave for employees. The group filing the suit includes the Chamber of Commerce of Arizona, Phoenix, Tucson, and Flagstaff, along with the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the owners of the restaurant Valle Luna in Phoenix. Their argument is that ballot initiatives are supposed to have a funding source if passed, which was not included in the passing of Prop 206. According to Arizona's constitution, a referendum can only be put into effect if there is a funding source besides the state government. Arizona Chamber President Glenn Hammer said the backers of Prop 206 put it together sloppily and didn't account for the number of government workers. Hammer is referring to government contractors who don't technically work for the government, but would still be subject to the minimum wage hike. As it stands, government workers are exempt from the pay raise, but it's unclear how the law would affect contractors. Some of these contractors include services to the developmentally disabled. On Thursday, the state said that those contractors would receive additional funds from the state. Tomas Robles, who ran the Healthy Families campaign that got Prop 206 on the ballot, says that the lawsuit is without merit and he will fight to defend the law. He says the suit is an attempt to ignore the will of voters. Robles also believes that the state's financial issues stem largely from tax cuts given to corporations after the state had a $243 million surplus last year. While Robles blamed Governor Doug Ducey for the tax cuts, they were actually instituted by the last 3 Arizona governors, starting with Fife Symington in the 1990s. Not that I wouldn't jump at the chance to blame Doug Ducey, I'm just trying to be fair.
Arizona's unemployment has dropped to 5%. The drop is part of a trend, with unemployment decreasing for the last 4 months in a row. Most of the additional jobs were in the private sector, particularly trade, utilities, and transportation. Utilities added 9,800 jobs for the largest increase. Professional and business service added 5,200 jobs, while leisure and hospitality added another 5,000 jobs. The one downside was construction, which lost 2,600 jobs. Tucson was ahead of Phoenix, with over 18,000 jobs created overall in November alone. Tucson was just behind Prescott in terms of top cities for job growth. Tucson also led the state in job gains from October to November. But don't get too excited. Economists caution that there was a slowdown in retail over the same period, possibly due to shoppers doing the bulk of their holiday buying online. They also say that Tucson's poverty is above average compared with the rest of Arizona, along with a lower median income. Tucson suffers from a poverty rate of 17.4%. The national average is currently at 14.7%.
Some TUSD parents are concerned with confusing rules that were created to prevent violent interactions in high schools. Tucson dad Troy Curtis addressed the school board about 2 separate assaults on his 8th grade daughter, who he says was suspended after defending herself. Curtis says that the video of the attack exists and clearly shows his daughter backing away before fighting off an attack. Her school claims that she was suspended because she failed to come to the office after the fight. But police officers explained to her that Arizona is a stand-your-ground state, meaning that she can defend herself from an attack without breaking the law. Parents have said that this illustrates the confusing policies that TUSD have in place to deal with problems by nonviolent means. They say that mediation is ineffective and the school needs to come up with a more clear policy to keep their students safe. In response, TUSD says they will set up battle cages within the school with the policy, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Critics say the policy is discriminatory and should be changed to 2 men enter, 1 man or woman leaves.
The Humane Society of Southern Arizona broke ground on a new $10 million facility in Tucson. Randy Peterson, Director of Development, says that the facility will have improved ventilation and air control systems. He says that it will benefit both the animals and their caretakers. So far, the Humane Society has raised $6 million for the project and hopes to raise the remaining $4 million among the public. So if you've got some spare change laying around, why not help out some pooches for the holidays? Or keep it for yourself and hear phantom barks while you try to sleep. Up to you.
The Tucson Wildlife Center has taken in a pair of javelina babies who were separated from their herd just days after being born. According to the center, the babies got lost after dogs scared off their herd. A passerby picked up the babies before realizing that it's illegal to hold native wildlife. They brought the babies to the vet but didn't say where they were found, so the baby javelinas are unable to be returned to their herd. The center staff will place the babies with 2 adult javelinas until they're big enough to return to their natural habitat. The center reminded the public not to pick up a baby javelina if found. It might be hard to resist these little guys, but please fight the urge to snuggle.
And our snooty neighbors to the north now have a dolphin aquarium, but not everyone is happy about it. Dolphinaris, Arizona opened 2 months ago in Scottsdale, and the 900,000-gallon saltwater lagoon has spurred controversy and protest. The lagoon is home to 5 dolphins who perform acrobatics for large audiences. Small groups are also permitted to enter the water and interact with the dolphins for 45 minutes for $149. An Arizona State University marine biology expert has called the attraction totally insane and says bringing the dolphins to a strange climate and environment could have negative impacts on the animals. More than 150,000 people have signed an online petition against the project. And yet, you can still buy tickets to see sad dolphins jumping through hoops for human amusement for as little as $59. How charming.
And I wanted to take a moment to talk about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we are undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We are going to give you the news as we see it. And we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves. So join us. Do it. Do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event we should cover, or have any news tips for us, shoot an email to info@creativetucson.org. We are here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of views. So don't be strangers. Now in national and international news.
Dylan Roof has been found guilty of all 33 murder charges after a rampage that killed 9 parishioners at a church in Charleston, South Carolina. Jurors will now have to decide if Roof will get the death penalty or life imprisonment for his crimes. Roof was calm during the trial and described his crimes in detail, claiming that he was spurred to kill after reading about the high rates of blacks killing whites. That information was actually inaccurate. Roof had already admitted to the crimes before the trial began, so it mainly came down to whether he committed a hate crime. And jurors found him guilty of both murder and hate crimes. His defense lawyers tried to present his mental instability as a reason for the murders and argued that he should be sent to a mental facility rather than prison. But the jury found that Roof was mentally competent to commit the crimes due to the immense planning he undertook prior to the shooting.
2 pharmaceutical executives have been charged for price fixing on generic drugs. Former CEO Jeffrey Glazer and former President Jason Malik of Heritage Pharmaceuticals stand accused of working together with other generic drug companies to fix prices. The charge comes after a 2-year investigation by the Justice Department and includes more than a dozen companies and 24 drugs. Teva Pharmaceutical and Mylan were also issued subpoenas and are reportedly cooperating with the government. In a statement, Heritage said that they are launching their own legal action against the individuals and will be cooperating with the Justice Department. One of the cases involved doxycycline hyclate, a high-priced antibiotic that officials say was artificially kept at a higher price. Glazer and Malik were fired last August when they were accused of stealing tens of millions of dollars from the company for at least 7 years. They used 5 dummy corporations to siphon off profits. Executives pocketed profits made from paying market price and then selling for a much higher amount. The antibiotic in question was prescribed 12 million times in the past year to treat conditions such as pneumonia, respiratory infections, Lyme disease, and acne. The drug company apparently has yet to find a cure for being a greedy douchebag.
Hopefully they find it soon. Facebook is now taking steps to fight the barrage of fake news overwhelming users' feeds. Vice President Adam Mosseri released a statement saying that the company wants to give users a voice and will be focusing on the worst of the fake news publishers. The company will make it easier to report a hoax by clicking an icon on the upper right-hand corner of a post. And they will be working with over 40 third-party fact-checkers who are all part of the Poynter Institute's International Fact-Checking Code of Principles. The fact-checkers will look at all stories reported as false by Facebook users and decide if their judgment was correct. Even if a story is found to be false, it can still be shared, but it will now come with a warning that the story has been disputed. Facebook also wants to rid the financial incentive for fake news purveyors by ceasing the ability to create dummy domain names that look similar to well-known news organizations. But hours later, the Facebook article was flagged multiple times as being fake news, forcing Facebook to scrap the whole plan. Following news of this story breaking, Facebook group Hillary for Prison 2016 posted that Facebook is going to begin taking your guns and will initiate the robot apocalypse on Christmas Eve. They also say Obama has passed a law to force people to stop using the term Christmas Eve and begin referring to December 24th as Holiday Eve.
Scientists from the Salk Institute were able to delay an aging in certain types of mice through reprogramming the animal's cells. The scientists, led by Professor Juan Belmonte, focused on mice who had a gene mutation for premature aging. They were able to reprogram chemical marks called epigenetic marks using stem cells and extended the mice's lifespan from 18 to 24 weeks. However, after this period, the mice rapidly developed tumors and died. The study hoped to prove that the process of aging is a cellular process that can be changed using these types of techniques. This is the first report of a cellular reprogramming leading to an extended lifespan in a live animal. Next up, scientists want to learn how the cell changes occur during the reprogramming process so that they can apply the process to wider use. But don't start fantasizing about eternal life just yet. The scientists say that rejuvenating a human is much more complex, and it will be years before they crack the code. Until then, take a page from our President-elect's book and stay looking young by outfitting yourself with a blonde wig and getting yourself an orange spray tan.
And the United Kingdom's fertility regulator has approved a technique for creating a baby using the DNA of 3 different people. Fertility clinics in the country can now apply for a chance to perform the procedure to create a 3-parent baby. The technique is aimed towards those who have a high risk of a life-threatening mitochondrial disease. Not everyone can undergo the procedure, as the regulators will be strict, at least for the first few years. The independent panel studying this issue said it is for cases where alternative treatments will have no benefit. The news brought out the same playing God arguments that we've heard ever since scientists began to learn how to manipulate DNA. Critics say that this will be a slippery slope towards creating so-called designer babies, where people choose the characteristics of their child. Some say this will lead to certain children being born with unfair advantages, and that the whole process runs against the natural order. These critics say that the women should be impregnated the old-fashioned way, by accident after a drunken bender.
A group of high-profile CEOs, including Tesla head Elon Musk, is joining Donald Trump's Business Advisory Council. The group also includes CEOs of Uber, Pepsi, Boeing, and IBM. The advisor's goal is to make it attractive for firms to create new jobs. Trump announced the group on the same day that he met with executives from Silicon Valley in an event organized by Peter Thiel, a Valley venture capitalist who is best known for funding the lawsuit that destroyed Gawker Media. Musk joined the team despite criticizing Trump on the campaign trail and calling him the wrong man for the job. PepsiCo was almost the target of a boycott after its CEO reportedly made anti-Trump remarks that were later found to be untrue. The inclusion of Boeing's CEO also raised eyebrows because of their tensions with Trump. The president-elect blasted the firm last week on Twitter because he claims there was overspending on Air Force One improvements. At the meeting, Trump said the tweet was about a different Air Force One owned by some guy he knows from Canada.
Documents have been unearthed that showed Czechoslovakia spied on Donald Trump and his ex-wife, Ivana. The espionage occurred while the country was still under communist rule in the 1970s and 80s. The 1977 document stated that Trump would be exempt from taxes for the next 30 years because of complex financial maneuvers. Czech state television and the German tabloid Bild uncovered the report, which also mentioned Trump's prenup agreement with Ivana. According to the report, Ivana would receive $1 million if the marriage was dissolved, which turned out to be the case. Hopefully, Melania held out for a better deal. The Czech agents who wrote the report said that Trump's business was safe because it had support from the U.S. government and because of Trump's tax advantages. They also said that Trump had a close relationship with Jimmy Carter, who was president when the report was written. A later 1988 report said that Trump was being pressured to run for the president, and that Ivana was urged to not make any mistakes in public so as not to put his candidacy at risk. But as we all know, Trump was capable of stirring up controversy all by himself. The same report detailed that Trump donated $10,000 to the Democratic and Republican candidate in the 1988 election, which was won by George H.W. Bush. After hearing about the spying, President-elect Trump threatened sanctions against Czechoslovakia before he was told that it's no longer a country.
A group of space enthusiasts in England have launched a meat and potato pie into space because why not? The pie was attached to a weather balloon and sent into the stratosphere to kick off the World Pie Championships in Wigan, England. Organizers say that it reached a height of 29 miles before returning to Earth 2 hours later. The purpose was to see if the molecular structure of the pie would change in space. The organizers hoped the pie would freeze on its ascent and then come back fully baked. So here it is, what you never knew you needed to see, a space pie.
Three, two, one.
What happens now, we have our tracking software here, which is basically a radio signal coming back from the pie, and then this uploads onto this map.
It's an awesome day. I mean, to actually send something into space, yet alone a pie.
FCC Chief Tom Wheeler says he will step down at the end of the year after months of speculation. Wheeler is a Democrat who became known as a prime defender of net neutrality, which keeps the internet independent of any kind of ownership. The FCC is now left with a majority of Republicans who hope to scrap net neutrality laws. Usually, FCC chairmen step down when a new administration begins, but Wheeler had refused to say if he would resign until now. Wheeler was a former lobbyist and an Obama fundraiser who initially received criticism for his industry ties, but he proved himself to be an advocate for consumer protections when it came to the internet and the airwaves. His critics have since changed their tune and praised Wheeler for his tenure at the agency. Now it will be left to Donald Trump to appoint the next chairman. Our president-elect is expected to name a Republican, which worries net neutrality advocates. They say that allowing ownership of broadband will create an unfair environment in the relatively open world of the internet. One critic wrote the following poem. First they came for the cat videos, but I didn't speak out because I didn't like cats. Then they came for TMZ, but I didn't speak out because I don't like celebrity gossip. Finally, they came for the internet, but there were no web pages left for me to find out how to contact my local congressman.
And on the topic of Trump and the internet, you can now remove the Donald's face from your online experience. An extension has been created for Google Chrome to detect images of Trump and replace them with images of kittens. The extension is cleverly called Make America Kittens Again. Now that's a cause I can really get behind. Unfortunately, the extension doesn't work on social media sites, but it can make reading Trump news a whole lot cuter, if not less disturbing. Got to get that extension installed right away.
I'm doing that right
I
now.
wonder if you can choose different animals if you're not into kittens.
I'm really not, but it's still better than Trump's face,
Maybe
right?
puppies or something.
Yeah.
This was Luke Godard.
And Anais Quintela for 5 on 20 News. Next up, Joel Foster shares his take on the media.
Hello and welcome to another edition of This Week in Mediocrity. I'm your host Joel Foster, who will be taking you down the wormhole to the best and the worst news coverage this week. Originally I was going to do some holiday-themed pieces of fake news, but I feel like I have to address the elephant in the room. Or maybe I should say, the stud in the creek. Nice rod there, Vlad. That's right, Russia has been dominating the headlines this week as allegations of hacking were announced by the CIA last weekend. It began when the CIA announced that they had evidence that Russia attacked the U.S. in order to interfere with our elections and get Donald Trump elected. The original briefing stated that the intelligence community as a whole believes that Russian agents were behind the release of emails belonging to former Clinton advisor John Podesta and DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. President Obama ordered a full investigation into the hacking, which you think would be the rational thing to do. But what's rational these days? The call for an investigation gave windbags like Rush Limbaugh something to yell about this week, and they took advantage, hard. The weirdest thing about the media this week is that sites like Breitbart and InfoWars jumped all over the fake news thing. They called out the Washington Post and the New York Times as being the prime offenders of fake news. But those same sites were the ones being targeted for fake news in the first place. It's like calling the kettle anything but black. Right-wing news outlets seem to take the view that there's no need to investigate the hacking. The election is over, so you should shut up, accept it, and flourish Vladimir Putin with the kind of excitement usually reserved for denying women's rights. Let's start with InfoWars. You probably know Alex Jones as the far-right conspiracy theorist who learned to talk by watching wrestling. Jones is calling the hacking issue a conspiracy theory. Let me repeat that. Alex Jones, the guy that says this,
had doctors on about this. Her shoulders are too wide. She's on like the 100th percentile of women, okay, with her body type. Her arms, everything. She always has this pooch, like she's wearing either a codpiece or has genitalia, okay? Now, she looks like a man. Like, dude looks like a lady, lady looks like a dude. And this is a funny cartoonist, Ben Garrison, who they're always calling racist and bad. And I mean, I'm sorry, it's true. It's a giant viral video phenomenon for like 8 years that she's a man. All I know is Obama was raised by a tranny in Indonesia. They're into all sorts of stuff. Co-president that tells kids what lunch to eat around the country, because you're God. Obama is obsessing, saying he'll sue Texas, sue North Carolina if we don't teach 5-year-olds how to be trannies, trying to sexually confuse kids. And you're fair game. And don't forget, the famous comedian Joan Rivers said, of course everyone knows she's a tranny. She's dead serious. Yeah, she's a man. Deader than a doornail in a routine operation where basically she had fire poured down her throat, was a fire-breathing goblin. I don't know if this was a weather weapon or not, but they can, with the right weather conditions, they can create and steer groups of tornadoes. The question is, were helicopters, because they use those up close, and small fixed-wing aircraft seen in and around the weather patterns? Like did people 50 miles out as these storm systems, did they see aircraft in and around the clouds spraying and doing things? If you saw that, you better bet your bottom dollar they did this. But the reason there's so many gay people now is because it's a chemical warfare operation. I have the government documents where they said they're going to encourage homosexuality with chemicals so that people don't have children. I even catch myself, Bob, drinking out of these estrogen mimickers. In fact, it'll probably say it if it's lined with it inside the plastic packaging. I wonder if this spring water, natural lime flavor I'm drinking. I know full well HEB's putting fluoride in this. Why am I drinking this? I know full well these kettle chips say that they don't have MSG, but they've got the yeast extract thing that says it's MSG. What's wrong with us? Why won't we stop? Why am I so weak? And they know that they have immersed us in this, Bob. For those watching on PrisonPlanet.tv, here's the inside of this juice box. And if they zoom in any more, see that thin plastic? It's got it. And I'm letting my children drink this. Why? Because after you're done drinking your little juices, well, you're ready to go out and have a baby. You're ready to put makeup on. You're ready to wear a short skirt. You're ready to go, put together a garden of roses or something. You're ready to put lipstick on. Look at this.
Yeah, that guy. He's calling the investigation, which may involve the first instance of a foreign power interfering with a U.S. election, a conspiracy theory. And what the hell? Let's do one more.
Pop star Taylor Swift is the latest in a long line of celebrities peddling death upon the people of the United States and the world.
We're going to get the latest now on the Trump transition and those
You can insult our government, our president, even our snacks, but you leave Tay-Tay alone. Fox News hasn't gone so far as to call it a conspiracy theory, but they're claiming that Democrats are fanning the flames by urging an investigation. Now, what should be a serious investigation into a serious problem has instead become a sport, pitting one team against the other. By making this a partisan issue, we're kind of not taking it very seriously. And our president, or our president-elect, who should probably be worrying the most about this, isn't helping.
We're going to get the latest now on the Trump transition and those new questions about Russian interference in our U.S. election. On Sunday, the president-elect said that the CIA's conclusion that Russia tried to help Trump win the election is, quote, ridiculous, as senators from both parties joined together to call for a new investigation of the claims. Trump senior advisor Kellyanne Conway standing by live. First, let's get the breaking details from ABC's Tom Yamas right here. Good morning, Tom.
George, good morning to you. And President-elect Trump is pushing back on that news as he gets closer and closer to moving into the White House. Trump accusing forces not outside the country, but inside of trying to undermine his presidency. President-elect Donald Trump in the middle of an intelligence drama, rejecting news reports that Russia not only interfered in the U.S. election, but did it to help Trump win.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just another excuse. I don't believe it.
Trump claiming politics is behind the story.
I think the Democrats are putting it out because they suffered one of the greatest defeats in the history of politics in this country.
Despite the U.S. intelligence community pointing the finger at Russia, the president-elect refusing to believe it.
They have no idea if it's Russia or China or somebody. It could be somebody sitting in a bed someplace.
Okay, so we'll just have to search all of Russia, China, and every bed in New Jersey to find somebody. What happened to Donald Trump's can-do, I'll solve every problem spirit? Remember that? Now he's just like, screw it. What are you going to do? Just let it go. Now, Tucker Carlson, also of Fox, seems to have a similar point of view as Trump. He likes more information when it embarrasses people he doesn't like. But otherwise, why do we need information? Here's Tucker now.
Joining us. Good to be with you. So one of the complaints in this letter, which is pretty interesting, is that Russia, and I'm quoting now, hacked our political institutions by, among other things, giving us access to John Podesta's emails in WikiLeaks. Now, I'm against hacking people's personal emails, for sure. I think it's a problem. But no one contests that those emails were real and the information in them was true, and voters got to see that, and it helped them assess how they wanted to vote. Why is that bad? Are you really arguing against more information for voters?
CIA and the FBI examine.
You're arguing against more information. Maybe he's confused at what information is. Or maybe he just needs his bow tie back. I don't know. Now, Rush Limbaugh, seen here, enduring the crushing emptiness of his life, echoed the same points as Trump. He claimed that security experts could never find who the hacker is, as if tracking an IP address isn't something your 15-year-old cousin can't do. And what does Rush Limbaugh know about cybersecurity? I'll be the first one to admit I know nothing about cybersecurity. I also know nothing about falling into an OxyContin stupor while watching a Steelers game, but I don't tell Rush Limbaugh how to live his life. The latest twist is the belief that there were no hacks, but rather leaks. I'll let you hear it from Judge Napolitano, Fox News' resident firebrand, who may or may not be a bullfrog with porcupine quills.
CIA and the FBI examined the exact same data, which was produced for them by the NSA. The CIA's analysts said the Russians were behind this. The FBI's analysts said there's no evidence that the Russians were behind it. But we do know that this was leaking. It was not hacking. Leaking is the unauthorized exposure of something to a person for whom it wasn't intended. Yep. Hacking is the altering of an operational system so you get a false result.
Did anyone else lose their sex drive forever when you started talking about hacks and leaks? That's right, the new view is that there are no hacks, but rather leaks. The idea started with a British ambassador named Craig Murray, who told a UK newspaper that he knows who the leaker is, and they're not Russian, but American, Dun, dun, dun. This means that it must be an inside job. But before we decide to pull out that old 9/11 truther t-shirt, let's think about this. Why would someone risk prison to expose the emails of John Podesta? If you got around to reading any of them, the most interesting thing from those emails was finding out that he's a UFO nut who hangs out with Tom DeLonge of Blink-182. Yeah, that's real. Edward Snowden leaking information on mass surveillance and risking prison. That makes sense. The same for Chelsea Manning, who received a 35-year prison sentence for leaking information about possible war crimes. That makes sense. So really, does it make any sense for someone to risk prison to reveal that Clinton didn't like Bernie or gossip about Chelsea Clinton? The irony of the whole thing is that it is a conspiracy theory, but a valid one. Putin has shown aggression through all sorts of ways, from ordering attacks in Aleppo to the invasion of Ukraine to challenging NATO. He's done everything short of giving NATO commander Fogh Rasmussen a wedgie. So why do we think it's below Russia to do something like this? What people like Limbaugh don't seem to get is this shouldn't be a political issue, but something that actually unites us. This is Russia. I thought we all agreed that Russia's the bad guy. It goes Russia, Chinese triad, and German terrorist with a thirst for bearer bonds. Just look at Putin. Just look at Putin. There you go. He's the perfect villain. I wouldn't be surprised if he was an actor hired in the 70s by Donald Trump. And don't forget, these are the people who bullied a cute squirrel and a mentally handicapped moose. And who killed Apollo Creed.
If he dies, he dies.
And let's not forget the time they invaded Calumet High School.
You do something, Mr. Teasdale.
The point is that if there's even a remote chance that there was a deliberate attempt to disrupt our elections, then maybe we should at least look into it. Trump supporters say that if Russia's proven innocent, then Democrats will only deny the evidence. And maybe they're right. And Democrats will look stupid for doing that. So let them. In the words of the executive producer of The Apprentice, what the hell you got to lose? Thank you. This has been This Week in Mediocrity. I'm Joel Foster, and I will see you next week. Thank you.